Hello, if you're a recovering non-dual zombie, this video is for you. After thousands of hours of meditation, retreats, and awakenings even, are you actually where you want to be in life? There's nobody here and nothing to do might not be true freedom. It might be an excuse to avoid taking responsibility for creating the life that you actually want to live. See, true freedom isn't merely freedom from restraints, but freedom with and as restraints. What I learned from my CC teammates is that freedom is responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility gets it half right. The truer version is that power is responsibility. But how do you take full ownership of your being and every aspect of your life without a self-view? How do you will without an agent and think without thinking? If ignorance conditions suffering, then whatever we ignore becomes the basis for the splitting and fragmentation that sustain the sense of separation. Perhaps the point isn't to eliminate your karmas or afflictions, but to use these very afflictions as a fuel or energy to flip karma into Dharma. My conversation with Adrian explores all these questions and how to put them into practice. First, we had John Lee, the non-dual zombie savior, who specializes in embodiment and breathwork. And then we have Taylor, the non-dual zombie slayer, with his yogic intelligence and precision. And now we have Adrian, a recovering non-dual zombie, who then uncovered the non-dual beast and ultimately transcended both, and realizes that you are neither the object of negation nor the subject of realization.
Spread your awareness like in all directions, behind you, above you. I filled the entire room and beyond. And it was like an atom bomb went off. It was like a detonation. And it was a force so powerful, I can only describe it as if like a bear was outside, because we were in the cabin in the forest. If a bear came into contact, it would run away. Like it felt that powerful. It was like scary, like how powerful like that moment felt.
Adrian is a father, a husband, a therapist specializing in Jungian and depth psychology, and before that, he was a competitive track and field athlete, professional fitness coach, and NBA performance trainer. In the halftime show of this video, Adrian demonstrated an approach to lifting that completely transformed the way I train.
Instead of counting reps, make every rep count.
Drawing inspirations from the archetypes of the king, the warrior, the lover, and magicians, we can explore each one of those, and ultimately the beast. Adrian explores how we can reclaim every dimension of our power without turning any of them into an identity or a center. For the love of the game and exertion, our trajectories are eerily similar. We both share athletic backgrounds shaped by obsession with speed, power, explosiveness, and then discovering and reaching the edge of the pragmatic Dharma and the solo realization path. After realizing self-emptiness, Adrian came to believe that his athleticism was something he needed to leave behind. His work coming to CC requires him to renounce even from renunciation. By returning to athletics and reclaiming its discipline, precision, and intensity as fuel for every dimension of life. It turns out that being a pro isn't limited to professional athletes. It means becoming a professional in life, recognizing that realization fitness demands the same discipline, precision, and commitment as becoming an Olympic athlete. A completion culture where mind training is life training and life is relationships. In my last video, The Solo Realization Trap, I explored how meditation is a team sport and how genuine training partners and companionship are indispensable on the path because many of our afflictions can only be highlighted and revealed through the process of relating. Today, Adrian leads Cohort A, the relational fitness wing of CC. So alongside the main line of transmission, which lasts for 90 days intensively, we also offer a few other parallel cohorts. One focuses more on view refinements and yogic philosophy, another embodiment through physical exertion, and a foundation cohort focused on getting your shit together in life. A lot of new exciting stuff coming up, bro. If you're interested in this type of training directly, Contemplative CrossFit is offering a free 1-week mini bootcamp, an open gym for anyone ready to build, enhance, and test their realization fitness, make practice inseparable from life, and connect with fellow infinite bros on the path. What's up, Adrian?
Frank, what's going on?
What's up, man?
In the flesh.
In the flesh. We're on the retreat right now. This is your first?
Yep, flew in last night. Met some of the guys for the first time, actually everybody for the first time in person, so. For the most part, it feels seamless. Like there wasn't anything too unusual, you know, like we just go right to relating.
Yeah. That's what one of the first things Machen said to you, right? If it seems seamless, that means you've trained up for it. Like your fitness is there.
Yeah. And so for me, three boot camps before meeting in person, it's almost a year, you know, almost a year of doing the training.
Yeah, pretty intense. And we're also talking about this retreat as being peaking in a competition, starting from the public practice week. I think a lot of us are peaking, and that's part of our training is that we are actually training like athletes. And this retreat right here is kind of like a race. The Public practice week was also its own race. But how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I can resonate with that. I think, so even though the training we've ended, the adaptation continues to catch up. So that momentum from all the work we've been doing, for me, it looked like the work didn't stop at the home front, like in life, right? I had all of my responsibilities. Actually, they increased a little bit after the boot camp. And I guess the measurement is being able to continue to do the work and in a way that's not dissociative, not looking for exits, looking for ways to distance from the experience. Just as an example, before I flew out, I had a bunch of house stuff to take care of. I had to move like lots of load of physical work, like gravel and mulch for the garden, a lot of physical labor. And I knew I only had like a day window to complete the task. So there was a real like measurable, challenge. And I guess the key is just went into the mode of doing, without deliberating, without, freaking out, just finishing the work. And that's an example of seeing the fruits of the work, not getting caught up in like, being overwhelmed and psyching yourself out, being consumed with doubt, that kind of stuff. And then being able to arrive here fairly smoothly was also nice, no interruptions.
Yeah, we just had like a little sit just now and a little debrief. And one of the main things we're talking about is closing that gap between Dharma and Karma, between like on and off the cushion practice. Yeah, because we were sitting in a room and then there were some disruptions. I'm not going to go into the details, but in that moment, that was a practice, right? So what is Dharma to you? And how does it relate to Karma? What does it mean to find that inseparable dance or even the total exhaustion between this separation, seeming separation between Dharma, your spiritual practice, and Karma, or your life, or your being, presence and being, like people who are familiar with the CC language. That's what I'm talking about. But we should start out in the beginning. What is Dharma? What made you
Dharma?
Become interested in this stuff?
I guess initially on the path, like Dharma, I conceived as like teachings, like the truth, the way, right? Some sort of methodology, some sort of lineage, teacher, technique. Like that was kind of how I conceptualized Dharma. Karma was probably more like the situational conditions that you have in your life. The family you were born into, your traumas, your gift, your talents, all the conditions. And on the path, at some point, for me at least, you start to see that they're actually the same things. It's your relationship to it that flips. So you start seeing your karma not as some sort of curse that you wish you didn't have, right? You let go of the insistence that like, I wish my life was different somehow, that I had a different partner.
Or that if you somehow fix your karma and then you'll reach Dharma.
Right. Yeah.
That's like the view most people have, right?
And endlessly purifying, healing, that kind of stuff is with this idea that once I rid of these conditions or change them, then I can be on my way.
To like awakening and like what the goal is,
And I guess what really starts to accelerate is when you take on the view that those very things are your rocket fuel to realization. And they are unique to you. Like your unique set of circumstance is your very personalized concoction of rocket fuel to get there. That changes everything, because now you're not looking for, you stop imagining for something different, right? That's one thing, because there was a lot of hoping, imagining, if my life looked like this, then everything will be better. Like all that stuff goes away. And then the life that's actually here, you recontextualize all of it. Instead of counting reps, make every rep count. At some point on the path, I feel like my trajectory felt so disjointed. Like what's the through line, And somehow there's this coherence of like, oh, it had to happen this way, exactly this way. All the twists and turns, all of the successes, all of the falls, all the stuff actually it couldn't have been any other way.
It's like synced up in a sense.
And that friction is lifted.
Right,
and I think that's, the work is hard enough as it is. With the added friction, like that's just the unnecessary thing that makes it even more difficult.
It doesn't mean that you don't have to do the work, right? Yeah. So how did you realize that karma and dharma was inseparable? Because obviously you didn't start out the path this way, right? You had like a goal, which probably wasn't even awakening at first, right? You were talking about meaning, right? You're talking about how in the beginning you were kind of just like everybody else, like you were looking for, I guess, the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And somehow you stumbled across Dharma, but before that, you had this whole path with like physical fitness, right? With being a personal trainer, and you became very successful. You say you train NBA teams, you work with the Wizards, and then you said you met a lot of really talented professional athletes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's almost like there was a phase where the path was about constant iterating. It was like reached to a certain point, I had to recognize that wasn't it. So there was a necessary letting it go, renouncing it, and moving to something different. But that whole pattern also in itself had to stop, because it wasn't about endlessly iterating and changing paths and finding new trajectories. Coming into CC, a lot of the emphasis was actually back in terms of reclamation, was going back into fragments of self, fragments of the being that actually were kind of prematurely gotten rid of too soon.
Which is what?
Like writing it off like fitness.
Like fitness.
You know, having started my professional career in fitness for close to 10 years, there came a point I was convinced, I was done with it. I'm now create this new identity, this other thing is my new mission, almost in a way that was actively denying,
ignoring. Because that's what
denying.
suffering was. I remember Taylor in the public practice week said, what is suffering? Suffering is the part of you that you're ignoring. That's why ignorance leads to suffering, right? So you were like ignoring that aspect of you that you are now reclaiming.
Yes.
Almost like coming full circle and connecting that karma to your Dharma that became your Dharma, in a sense, right?
Yep. And so that was seeing that karma actually is necessary to integrate, to bring back into the picture. And in order to actually come as you are, that is required to gather all of these parts of yourself, including all the things that you've ever devoted time and pain and energy towards was necessary. But also in a fresh way. It's not like you re-engage with those things necessarily, but they're brought back into the picture, and there's an openness
with the right
to
view,
it.
with the view, right?
And then you get to recreate it.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, right? So they're brought back, and you create something new with it.
But I think in order to do that, you have to have the view, right? If you don't have the view, then you could be just perpetuating that same karmic entanglement, or just adding on to the conditionings instead of repatterning the conditioning, so that it aligns, it syncs up to presence, or Dharma. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that process? You said that before you came to CC, maybe this is the through line, one of the through lines, that you thought that anatta-realization or self-emptiness was like the end, right? But then when you came to CC, you realized, okay, that was actually just the beginning, because we normalized anatta-realization. But then the reclamation happens almost as a byproduct after that realization. And you said something in one of the interviews that you did with Alan and Tyson, that there is this thing that's provided in this container, which is unique in the spiritual marketplace. So like, what is life after realization?
Yeah.
Well, most people thought it was the end, but now in CC, okay, actually there is a life after getting that goal.
Yeah. It's like illumination alone is not the end. It's like, what do you want to do with that? Right? Once you see into the nature of mind, nature of phenomena, you see emptiness of self, that's not the end of the self. Actually, it's seeing that the self wasn't taken all the way. It wasn't finished. So then I had to go back to all the parts of the self that were kind of partially in development and go and finish the job. Right? So like my understanding now of completion is actually being a complete human, which includes all the richness of the self. And so back to your question of Dharma, the Dharma is none other than the full expression of you.
Right.
And so it's the full expression of Adrianness. If Adrianness was a sort of amalgam of all of those, aspects of being, that at some point on the path, I was actively trying to deconstruct and get rid of. Like I was trying to annihilate being.
That's the extreme view of like nihilism, right? Making like not self into a thing. Yeah, and then what I describe completion is you get to be utterly and complete yourself, but simultaneously transcending and going beyond the self. Because most people just oscillate, right, between the two. Either transcending the self, having no self, or maybe they're just being completely identified with their being or their self, right?
Yeah, because nothing in particular gets ossified or reified into some solid ground. So it allows for infinite creativity,
right?
But also there's no fear of choosing temporary ground expressions of being. We talk about like the non-dual zombie phenomena, right? Like I was there, spent years in a state of confusion, basically trying to reinforce this insisting on this condition of like, there's no chooser, there's nothing to be done here because there's no ultimate doer behind, all the activities, which is, if I think about it, that actually caused a shit ton of suffering, because even though there was some genuine recognition, now it's become this like very narrow band of reality, trying to insist reality to fit this very narrow expression. And yeah, I guess CC was, if anything, that first boot camp was largely first given the permission, like the actual instruction to come as you are, but then internally realize, what am I doing? Like you don't have to hold back all of these things. I've told you were a big part of helping me get back in touch with physical exercise. Right? There was a point where I lost interest and motivation almost to the extreme of just like, there's no one here to exercise. There's no fitness gains to be had. There's no goals, and just seeing this tendency towards, what's the word? Basically, not engaging with life anymore, being complacent, right? And getting unhealthy, like gaining weight, getting unhealthy, all of these actual physical, like, markers of, look, if you don't tend to this physical body, even if you can see through its empty nature, there are consequences.
It's not complete, right?
That's
not
right.
Complete. Yeah. So being a complete human being and being the victorious one, it's almost like one and the same, right? We talk a lot about being the victorious one. It's like, noble beings are the victorious ones. And we would have this Nike sweatshirt, right? Just do it, and the Nike goddess of victory. What is victory to you, and why is victory emphasized so much in CC?
That's the craziest thing for me.
And also because you came from the world of sports. It's all about victory, right?
That's what I mean. It's like, for whatever reason, I always had this like natural disposition towards like competing, winning, and just this unexplainable confidence. Like even like, as an untrained athlete, for some reason, there was just like a confidence, maybe it's like a naive confidence of like, I don't know, we're just going to win. Like, I don't care if the odds are stacked against us. We're going to do this. At some point in my adulthood, I thought that confidence was the problem, right? I had some setbacks in my career, a bit of professional shame, and I pinned the problem to like, I was overconfident. It was confidence, I was unchecked. So I leaned the other extreme.
The other extreme of like,
trying to get rid of confidence.
Humble person.
Yeah, no more confidence. Confidence bad. Humility good.
Already created that.
Shied away from competing, even though there was this like natural, like real, desire to do so. I talk about like the Mamba mentality, like Kobe Bryant, like that sort of killer instinct, like unexplainable work ethic, and just wanting to dominate, like all arenas. And I share that, and almost embarrassingly so. Like I almost didn't want to admit, it's like, who am I to like compare myself to Kobe Bryant or like that type of. But if I was really honest, it's like I have that in me. It's like this crazy, right? This crazy just like drive to like, like we're gonna go for it, like go all the way. Why not? And put in the work too, like not skipping the steps to getting there. And then now seeing that actually is what the culture of the victorious ones is. Buddhahood is none other than the victorious ones, as it's sort of often described, in the text. And those two things were like on far extreme opposites at some point.
They don't contradict, actually. Yeah. That's one of the practices that we're doing, is coming as you are and just holding contradictions, like holding the tension between two extremes. You can say that's the entirety of the path, right? Because like when you talk about the confidence or the victorious one, it's almost like confidence with a capital C, or the victorious ones with the capital V, where that confidence or that victory includes both losing and winning on the more conventional level, which is not apart from the ultimate, but it's also the condition, which cannot even touch or affect the unconditioned. And even like confidence, like presence itself has its own confidence because it's always recognizing itself, right? It cannot be any other way. But then within that confidence, it can include on the more conventional level, on the level of karma, arrogance and humbleness, right? It's accepting both, including both, but transcending both simultaneously. That's the middle way view, right?
Yeah.
That which transcend but include, right?
Yeah.
So you had to, at first you were like very confident on the more like the character level and the B level. The Adrian was overconfident at one point, but then you went to the other side of the extreme, and then now you're attached to it, be identified with being humble. But now you are bringing both of these views and both of these dualities together, accepted both, and then simultaneously going beyond.
Yeah,
So that could kind of sum up. That's part of the process.
As I'm listening to you, it's also, it's not even like a personal confidence as such.
But then the personal confidence can be there.
That's included.
Yeah. It's included.
That's part of it.
Yeah, right.
But it's more like a confidence in like the outcome. It's for some reason it's like I'm just confident even if there's an apparent setback, something like whatever, something unexpected happens. There's just like a deep knowing confidence that there's no failure here. Like we're gonna get to whatever needs to be. An example that comes to mind is I went hiking with some friends in like the Alps in Europe. My friend twisted her ankle and we had a lot of hike left, like many hours, and she might have fractured her ankle. But for some reason there was this natural just like responsiveness. I taped her ankle up. We all assembled, like we all had different jobs of like taking the bags and helping her go down. There was no sitting there like checking clock of like, are we gonna make it? Like it was just like fucking next step, next step, next step. And like now looking back, it was kind of crazy. Like that sort of tunnel vision almost, like that amount of focus of like, we're gonna get to the finish line. Like I don't care like how we're gonna get there. We're not, no one's gonna get left behind. It was that sort of certainty just kind of emerged. And in a way there was like, there's no room for doubt. There's no room for doubting the situation. Right. Like the consequence of that can be fatalistic, can be fatal. It's like, it was like life and death. It felt like a life and death thing. And for some reason, it was like my mind just blocked out any possible routing for failure.
Interesting.
I don't know how to explain that. It's not like a personal confidence thing. It's like literally just like, you just know what the next thing is. And you just have to follow the next thing and just keep going. And
would you say that's related to what we're talking about in the boot camp in terms of like not being confused about confusion, or like even in the state of indeterminacy, you are determined in a sense, like you raising that duality even between like certainty and uncertainty. You are certain even when you're uncertain.
I guess there's a level of like staying locked in, even though you don't see everything. Yeah. You're literally right at the edge of like the emergent like moment. So you don't have a plan. There's no blueprint for what to do next. And yet there's maybe a not panicking aspect to it and staying locked in. But you're also not like lying to yourself about what's happening. Yeah. You're fully sober to the fact that this is a dangerous situation, like things can really go wrong. And yet you just kind of, you feel your way through it.
But what would you say to the people that say things like, oh, maybe now you're just attached to the outcome? That's a little different, right? Like you say you kind of are certain what the outcome is. But like, how do you know what the outcome is? If you know what the outcome is, then are you not like ratifying it in some sense, or is this something that's transcending even a particular representation of the outcome?
I'm open to however this unfolds. There's almost like this sneaky, it feels like a hack. It's like however this unfolds is still going to be a win.
Okay, that's
even if it's a loss. Right, so even if it's a small
that's what I was trying to get to when I was making that semen duality between
It's like it's
losing and winning.
It's like, of course we can lose this game,
right.
But you know the bigger goal. Like you know there's a bigger prize, and so you're not caught up in like this, what we can call this moment as a loss, which isn't. If your view is that this too is turned into a win.
This
because you learned something, and
exactly.
so it reveals something. So how would you not see that as part of the winning? So then you're playing games that you can't lose. So that's like and it's not something you can fake. So you know what I mean? It's not giving somebody like, oh, here's a cheat, just convince yourself.
It's almost like it's beyond the intellect.
Yeah, right? it's like, there's a period where I got into trading, so there's like, you lose trades, you lose money, but you also recognize that like, you're investing in this process of this bigger, time scale. And so of course there's going to be wins and losses along the way. And so how are you engaging with that? So even all of those seeming losses are part of you ultimately the big win. There's a natural attraction to something that actually seems somewhat impossible. Like there has to be like a right amount of challenge, but attainable, right? So like it's not going after things that I think are just like outrageously beyond reach, but also like there has to be stakes involved. So I actually think it's part of it to have like actual potential for loss is what draws me in, right? If it's a game that you just keep winning, like playing Monopoly at home with kids or something, it's like I don't care about that.
Right.
So I don't like to play all games, but I'm also not like a gambler in terms of like, I just want to scratch tickets and win lottery tickets. It's like I choose the games that fit that category for me.
That's part of the skill, right?
Where I think that I can develop a certain edge in it, a unique edge in participating.
That edge is where you get the fitness. It's almost like
yeah.
you have to find an edge, but at the same time, you gotta know. It's kind of like you have a sense of like that edge being exactly where it's supposed to be, so you can stay there and then develop your fitness in order to keep moving the edge beyond. But without like overshooting it, neither are you like, oh, too laid back where you just see the edge as something that's too far away that you're not gonna even try to like.
And I think we all know what that is for us.
Yeah.
Like that we all have that general, like that's why we're attracted to certain things. You know, it's like, oh, Frederick's really into kendo. Why? Why did he pick this of all the martial arts? It's like, there's something unique about this expression that he probably resonated, like, I can get good at this.
Yeah,
I
but
have
then he doesn't know for sure he's gonna win that, but that's
Yes.
where the edge is, right? But then he also doesn't know, like, it's almost like that bridging that gap between like effort and effortlessness or something like that. You can't be like completely effortless, but then there's no challenge. You can't grow.
It can't be too easy.
You
'cause
can't be
won't
too
do
easy.
it.
Then your fitness won't increase. But then it can't be too hard, where it just seems like an impossible goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're speaking like fitness training, like finding your actual, like, what's the right dose for you to increase your fitness, right? That's like right back to what I used to do for a living. It was like designing programs that were personalized to each individual's goal and their capabilities, and now you just see that as actually applying life in that way. You create life in with that same frame of mind.
Going back to the fitness journey that you had, that was part of your reclamation. I remember during one of the discussions, you're like, oh, you fed a bunch of information or your life story, your trajectory to like Claude, and then there was like underlying thread. And the underlying thread was professional sports, right? Do you remember that discussion? That was a pretty illuminating discussion.
Yeah.
And the two questions, how does that relate to everything you're talking about? How are you planning on reclaiming that aspect of yourself? Like in terms of like, you know, being involved with professional sport again. Another one is pro CC, right? Like that was like really, really illuminating, that part. Can you talk a little bit about
so I guess
that?
for
Not just even your personal interest anymore. There's like a bigger goal in terms of like, oh, actually there's something you can contribute in terms of like going back into professional sport, but bringing what we learned in CC in terms of like realization fitness in there. Because like everything you were talking about in terms of like, okay, the desire to win and the Mamba mentality, and it's like, okay, how come Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan are not like realized? You know, what's the difference, right?
Yeah.
But then you pointed out something really interesting because they don't have to view. So how do those things kind of reconcile?
Yeah, this goes to the question that I was asking in this last boot camp was, like, what is my Dharma? That's the core question.
Yeah.
So what is our unique Dharma, unique expression? What does it mean to be Adrian? These are all different ways of asking the same thing. And so to me, like what that isn't so much about this thing like far into the future, it's what you've always been about. So the clue is actually looking at what have you been doing your whole life. So I fed to Claude because I was like, well, maybe use an AI to help like look at patterns I'm not seeing. So I gave it just like what I try to, like a comprehensive resume, essentially, describing my trajectory from my interest in sports as a kid and track and field, being competitive, and then later switching to working into fitness, rehab, getting into specific areas of rehab, leaving, and then diving into different domains, like moving horizontally into tech at some point. I mentioned trading, crypto, and the psychology, psychotherapy training.
You're a therapist right now.
Yeah, so now I work as a therapist. So it feels like when I describe it in this linear fashion, it feels kind of like disjointed. There's just like so much stuff. So I fed this into Claude to see if I can get a response of what are some emergent patterns that you're seeing, that I'm not seeing. And I thought it was interesting because it said something about, although it may look at the surface like some sort of disjointed, journey, it's actually quite consistent and coherent. Specifically the thing around how you seem to always have this singular inquiry in all these domains of what is the edge of human performance and what's the source that's being blocked. At what point, like what's the root cause that's blocking from that?
From reaching or transcending the edge.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. In fitness, I cared about that. It wasn't just like becoming a meathead, just lifting conventionally. Like I was really interested in what people are doing at the edge. And also, how do I get at the root cause? So whether it's an athlete that wants to improve performance or correct their injury, because they keep repeating the same patterns.
Okay.
Same with me. It was like I was frustrated because my injuries kept repeating, and I was doing the same things. So I had to ask, like, what's missing? I'm obviously not addressing the root cause. So that happened in fitness, and I had found approaches that actually got closer. And then same with therapy. I wasn't just interested in symptom management, helping somebody feel better, less stress, you know, a little less anxiety. It's like, what is the root?
Like the root formation.
At the root level, then I was drawn to things like depth psychology, Jung, you know, at the root of trauma, like these kind of things. And then in spirituality, the same thing. Although I was drawn initially to like, oh, maybe quieting the mind, improving productivity, like those are most of the same reasons we get drawn. But at some point, it's like, oh, it became apparent that you can go all the way. But by going all the way, it means you go all the way in. Like you go right to the source of like the nature of phenomena. Right? That didn't start at day one. That came eventually of like, oh, that's the same inquiry. I've been asking the same question in every one of these domains. And so it helped me recontextualize life as not this like messy arc. It was like, oh, they were all journeys necessary, but asking the same inquiry the whole way through.
What is the nature of phenomena?
Yeah.
So nature of the self, nature of experience, mind.
At the irreducible level, yeah, yeah. And so back to your question about
the professional athletes.
that came up because somebody asked me in the boot camp personally, like, what's your definition of victory in this lifetime? I was like, oh shit, I like that. Like, I didn't actually sit and spend proper time fleshing that out. What came up in the moment was like, it's what I'm already doing, but what does that look like taken all the way? So as a parent of two boys, I was like, it looks like raising two boys in a world where they get to pursue their wildest dreams. So their Dharma, right? So also helping them express and discover that.
It looks like there's a lot of like multifaceted jewels that all have like this underlying thread.
Yeah.
Right. There is the sort of the unconditioned ultimate underlying thread is like realizing the nature phenomena. But how that expressed also has sort of this like thread that is different and is expressed differently in each individual beings. Like
Yes.
that's your karma.
Yes.
But when you kind of see the inseparable dance between that and Dharma, the nature phenomena, and then you take that all the way, and then you reach.
It's like, what if your life looked like an Olympic sport? So what does gold medal look like? It's kind of like that, if you ask it in that frame. So there's no one can do your sport. It's just, it's your lane.
But the gold medal is the gold medal. You win. If you win, you win, right? There's a very,
What does the podium look like when your life is taken to its Olympic like level of
Okay, that's a really
completion?
Good analogy, yeah.
Because it requires that level of work.
Okay, so well, why do I have to go down slow again? I never go down slow before.
Yeah, so you were just eliminating inertia, primarily speed, right?
I'm used to like, this is what I used to
Yeah, because once you launch it, you got load in the beginning, and the rest of the way it's actually weightless, right? Because it's less resistance. So the first thing is, let's just make sure you're loaded the entire range of motion. If this was a sport, you're going to leverage everything about speed to get the weight up. But if it's about actually using this to adapt and change your body, then make the time efficient, make it count, right? So most people aren't doing it as powerlifting as a sport.
So if I just want to maintain.
You just want to get big or powerful, then yeah, let's worry about quality. So you contract before the motion. So already there's the intention in targeting what's actually moving. Yeah, and then the piece about driving your back into the bench, it does something. It changes your perspective of not pushing weight. You're pushing yourself down into the ground. And you're purely just bringing point A to point B. There you go. Right, the muscles attached from point A to point B, and they're just trying to get closer. That's it. Like from an internal perspective, that's all you're doing. Yeah. And squeeze. And it's as you fatigue is where we want to cheat. So this is where you actually need to wake up and pay attention. It's those last 2 reps. Right? That's where we want to avoid challenge. Yeah, there you go.
Like if I,
Yeah. You got at least 2 more in you. Yeah, so we want to get close to that edge. Yeah, getting close to failure. Pause. Yeah, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. There you go. Good job. Nice. And it's that edge. You're just trying to get close to that edge.
it's the same
Right.
as when we're meditating.
Yeah. I mean, for a novice, you want to back off it, but you don't want to get right to failure. But basically, the name of the game is, can you stay and approach the edge without breaking? Like, it's how close can you get to where that point is, and still make it productive so your body gets stronger each time instead of breaking down.
How does that repattern?
How's your pattern? I think every patterns are human habit of avoiding pain. Yeah, and you're probably doing it just like counting reps. You're trying to get to a certain number.
Also for the PR too. I feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
I care more about.
We're attached to like how much you did, how much you lifted, as opposed to what are you actually getting out of the exercise. Right? Exercise is just a means to change your body. So make it about the body, right? Not about the external weight. Instead of counting reps, make every rep count. Because most gym goers are just counting. It's all performance.
It's all like
from
same
quantity.
atomic pattern, like
Yeah.
over and over. Yeah.
And what they cost is the quality. Like the quality goes out the window when they're just obsessed with getting number up, number go up, number go up. Again, like small fragment of the population, that is what they're doing, trying to lift as much weight and as efficiently as possible, and then they win the gold medal. Right? For most people going to the gym, they're looking.
They don't care about that. Actually,
This is just a means to transform you, or whatever your thing is. If you want to lose calories, even if it's a calorie game, you still want to be efficient instead of just like wasting time and getting to the last 2 reps where you actually are loaded. You wasted the entire beginning 80% of like the exercise. So from the get-go, you're locked in. And there's like the whole meditative side to it. When you train in this way, it's now meditative, right? Because you're not dissociating. You're not trying to lift in a way that's just trying to avoid challenge. That's just disassociating from the experience. Yeah.
So you're lifting the fire.
Yeah. It becomes a somatic yogic practice. It's just inseparable. Yeah. Do a slight pause and do the contraction before motion. Yeah. So you're squeezing. Don't move yet. Stay at the isometric level and just contract. And now you really know where it's coming from. Nice. Yeah. Don't worry about the fatigue. I'll kick in when needed. It's just you just stay loaded. Exactly. So I'm just watching his anatomy. There you go. That's good. Yeah. Push your shoulder blades back into the bench. Shove back. There you go. Yeah. That's good. For a lot of people, that's a game changer. I got you. Don't look. Yeah, just keep going and rack. Yeah. Nice work. Good job. Right? So it's not just like making it into this little whatever. It's like it's a real commitment. It's a long journey, but there's a path towards it. It's not impossible, right? People get to the Olympics like it's a real thing. And so when I ask myself that question, parenting looks like, being able to raise my boys in such a way where there's this total engagement with life. In the domain of my marriage, it looks like retiring early. Being able to also continue living a life that we started before kids and before, just being lost in career or whatever these things. So I just had this number. I was like 55, being able to retire 55. So I have a goal. My wife and I be able to at least not have to work for money, right? That was another. And then the last piece that surprised me, because I was like, there's like a feeling of unfinished business. I feel like I do want to re-engage with pro sports. I feel like this was something I kind of like moved beyond too quickly, like kind of prematurely. It's like there's an aspect of like, I didn't fully get to do all the things I want to do. And I don't know what that looks like. So my example is maybe within the context of CC, there's a cohort where we target like elite performers, like elite athletes.
Yeah, with Tyson, right? The tertiary cohort, which is going to be a thing next upcoming.
Yeah, it's exciting. Officially kind of launching its own.
Maybe you can give a little sneak peek. Like, what are you guys working on in terms of like? I think you guys are calling cohort E for exertion, right?
Yeah,
you were also experimenting with like walking on a treadmill, or even like taking a walk, even like slow jogging outside while you were listening and getting the transmission from Adrian. Tyson can probably speak more to the structure of what that can look like in a boot camp. From my understanding, it's seeing it as almost like so we do the mind training piece when we come into CC. It's like the focus primarily is on mind training, realization fitness, sits, and all these components of concentration, absorption, purification, view refinement. But then as the practice becomes off cushion and inseparable from life, it also starts looking like, how do you re-engage with physical training now? Because is it just merely exerting for its own sake? Or can your engagement with traditional fitness or sport or movement actually become virtuous and inseparable from realization fitness
to the same accumulation that you're doing with Dharma practice? And so I think the hypothesis is it can be done in such a way. In fact, it may even accelerate. So that's what I was playing with trying to do transmission on the treadmill was, does this actually accelerate the way that karma gets expressed and worked through? right? Like it's one thing to meet the conditions when conditions are fairly manageable, like sitting in a quiet room, no interruptions. It's another when your heart's beating at 150 beats per minute and there's like knee pain and you're exhausted and you're hungry, like when you increase like the actual stressors. And so this, yeah.
It's almost like training in life, but then taking to the level where you actually physically expressing yourself athletically.
Yes.
Because we say like we use the conditions of life as sort of the fuel for further transformation, right? As like this obstacle that you kind of have to maneuver through in order to refine and deepen your realization. But now you're almost like taking this to a level of athleticism, like specifically, say like running or lifting or, I don't know, training in basketball players, like perfecting their craft while simultaneously realizing the nature phenomena. Which, you know, like you said, like a lot of the athletes, they do have this drive to win, but then they suffer because they are solely identifying with the being that wins, or with the outcome, with the, you know, the wins and losses on the more conventional level, without seeing the emptiness of the self.
Yeah.
Right. And I had a question. I was doing one of the discussions with Tyson too, and I was like, if all athletes realize self-emptiness, would that make them better athletes? Right? Would that be the missing piece? Would that be the root that, well, the missing piece of the puzzle that could perpetuate these athletes to even a greater level of performance, or at least not suffer through the process, which, you know, would yield to even more work capacity?
It's a good question.
Because a lot of times when people would look at the self-emptiness thing as something to shy away from, because they don't want to lose their competitive edge.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, okay, if I lose the self, then how am I going to compete, right? How am I going to win if I don't have a self? But then we realize after all this training, that's probably not the case. You can probably like win more, right?
Yeah.
Both on the conventional level and like, you know, more like the ultimate level.
It's often said, like when you get to that level where you're world class, like you get to the NBA, everybody is a gifted like specimen.
Yeah.
Not much separates from the top performer to the worst performer in the league from a physical standpoint. They're all fast, they're all strong, they're all athletic, they're all those things check out. So what separates them is how they meet the moment. How they meet their edge. Right? Yeah. Whatever that edge is. That edge could be in competition when there's a lot of pressure and you know the spotlight's on them. But that moment could also be off the court. How you handle ridicule, how you handle defamation. Yeah.
Or like fame, money, you have all these different conditions that...
And that's the thing maybe that kills a career.
Right.
Because they can't handle that pressure. Or they can't handle, you know, so
you think like realization fitness will allow that buffer to be there in terms of like processing these different conditions that could otherwise hinder?
I think we should just keep milking the shit out of Adrian.
Fuck, I know. I don't know. I'm like,
got like fucking 5 interviews, just like
getting used to it now.
every month.
What's the cost of being a likable guy?
because it's the same fitness.
Right.
Even to a non-athlete, it's the staying power. Basically not withdrawing or disassociating from difficulty. Right? So that athlete is don't withdraw into your same patterns, whatever that is, when things aren't going well and everyone's blaming you. Right? It's a classic example, I'm thinking Gilbert Arenas, because he was part of the Wizards when I was there. The players I worked with all were part of that era. And it ruined his career when that incident with the whole gun thing.
Oh, I
don't know if you remember
that.
Yeah,
a lot of the like NBA players had a couple of incidents that almost like ruined their career or completely ruined
it was never the same.
Right? Oh, Kobe Bryant had that incident
one moment
with, when he cheated on his wife, right? But then he somehow overcame it.
So the interesting
that's why I made him Kobe.
That's the interesting thing with Kobe.
Yeah.
He relished it.
Yeah.
Like instead of collapsing.
Right, because that's when he came up with the Mamba mentality, right? He was like,
flipped
okay,
it.
he talked to his like therapist or something. Like, you need to find an alter ego that allows you to not just accept your darker side that everybody is hating on, but actually use it as a fuel to transcend.
He had this clean image
Yeah,
up until then. He was a hero figure, clean, innocent guy.
Yeah.
And then whatever, right? The accusations and stuff, and he was painted as villain. It's like, all right, I'm gonna use that. That'll be my new brand, the Mamba mentality, this poisonous dark snake thing, right? He's just like literally using that, and then just like proving people wrong, right? So I can't tell you like to the degree that was like holding the view, but there was something about that, like his
there was
ability.
there was some refinement there. It's like, okay, I have to let go of my pure or like clean image in order to, go.
Because he could have doubled down, try to like explain to people, prove himself.
Right,
No,
be
I'm
even
not
nicer,
that.
to give some money to charity, or
He just turned it into another game.
Yeah, it would just
Like,
be another
it
game.
becomes another game that I'm now going to learn how to win at or whatever. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So you were saying how like there could be potentially something called like the CC Pro, in which we train or even have a cohort.
I think
that's
it'd be really
consistent
cool.
of, like professional.
I think it'd be really cool when you
Because
take.
even right now we have like semi-professional athletes.
We got
on the
people
team,
from
right?
all areas of life, and I think, yeah, if we start running these experiments to see, maybe you're already excelling at whatever you're doing, but you're hitting a certain ceiling. What will it look like if you move towards becoming like a fully complete human? Because maybe it's no longer pertaining to your craft. It's all these other things that we've neglected, right? So when you start like not ignoring those things, how does that feed back into your art? Right? Whatever that art expression is. So it's not just athletics. It could be, you could be a business leader, you could be a parent, right? So I think pro is just like the level of.
It doesn't have to mean like pro athlete. Just like
it's almost like
being a
the level.
professional in life.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So making it like you're just about this. Like it is just like what you're like the Olympic level of commitment.
Interesting. Yeah, but for these athletes that already accomplished at the level of like competition athleticism, like winning championships, for them maybe the missing piece is realizing the nature of phenomenons or self-emptiness. But for someone who has already realized the nature of phenomenon, maybe for them it's like maybe on your path reclaiming the aspects of you that still wants to compete, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like coming from two ends of the extreme, but then somehow that karma and dharma they meet, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the four, how do you call that?
The archetypes?
Yeah, the archetypes. Yeah. How did you use the archetype to influence your path? Like you wrote that in your dissertation, right?
Yeah. So last bootcamp we were asked to write a piece, a dissertation essay piece that kind of speaks to you, like on your journey and is relevant in that bootcamp. For me, it was the theme that I saw was a lot of these sort of masculine areas of development that I was coming into like maturity. It's like these are things that were already kind of like being worked on, but there was a certain ripening or closing of certain loops. So I used the four archetype model from Gillette and Moore. So they wrote a book which is based on Jungian psychology of the warrior, king, magician, lover. So these four archetypes. There's more aspects to it, but I think it's a nice start to kind of distill the male psyche into these parts, right? So the warrior could be just the aspect that is able to step up to conflict, express aggression, maybe setting boundaries. Like that's part of like the warrior's energy. And so when that's not, coming into the full expression, then you have the shadow side, right? Maybe you're manipulative, you're passive aggressive, these kind of symptoms. And so I looked at these four, but then I also was curious about the beast, which was not classically part of the four archetype model.
Wait, before you go to the beast, can
Yeah.
you maybe expound a little bit on the lover and the magician?
Yeah. So lover was a big one for me. So basically the lover archetype for males is like their inner feminine. Like that's the other way to put it. It's like the inner feminine part of you, of the male psyche, that often we kind of like reject or project out into the world, and we idealize in other women, right? So the classic example is you over idealize, like other women, or you like it can show up as like hypersexual fantasy, right? Of like the way it showed up for me was wanting to be the hero to save the female that's in distress, right? The damsel in distress archetype. It's like a classic one. Very attracted to that kind of like scenario where it's like, ooh, fantasize being the one to step up to be a hero. And so all that just like reveals like the underlying unmet need within the male psyche. And so
when you say externalizing, what you mean is that there is a part of you, the feminine side, that wasn't getting expressed, or you didn't want to look at it, so you externalize it. And you idealize that aspect of your psyche onto the external world. Say for you, or a specific case was to idealize the feminine in the sense that you have to save them. Right?
Yeah. And so it's very simple. So what that looks like is for most men, getting in touch with your feelings, your vulnerable side.
Interesting.
Being able to be soft, like admit that you have those
Dude,
things.
that's so interesting because like, I think the way I externalize is I want to fuck every woman before, right? So, but
Because you build yourself up as this powerful, whatever.
Beast that just want to like my fuck the world, right? Very masculine. But then one of the first things Mason said to me was actually, Frig, you've been fucking people your entire life. Now it's time for you to get fucked, right?
Yeah.
You need to get fucked.
You actually need to reclaim like the wounding of the male.
Right.
And that requires you to like slow down and actually feel,
feel,
what the heck you're feeling. Maybe it's just simple things like feel sad. Let yourself feel sad. Let yourself cry. These really basic things that maybe we take for granted, but it's very uncommon in culture, right? We're not told to do this. Like we're told to like suppress, don't appear weak, whatever, right? Look strong, put on a figure, a physical form that like looks a certain way, looks like a superhero. Because you're running away from the weakling that's within, the one that feels inadequate and weak and skinny and whatever, frail or something. But when you reclaim that, funny thing is, I start losing that fantasy of wanting to be that hero. As a therapist, it used to be very like seductive. A female client comes into practice, I really want to help and fix them. I want to be that hero.
Do you think that also kind of was going on between you and your wife, that relationship?
100%.
So you wanted to, like, there was a phase where you kind of wanted to save her, and that was
when she was in distress,
right?
my knee-jerk reaction was, how do I quickly resolve this? How do I put out the fire? Because I had a discomfort of seeing her in pain.
Right.
So I felt this like, I had this sort of reflex of being the one that needs to like go and, alleviate her suffering. And so part of it was learning to just be there. In fact, most of the time when I try to intervene,
fix it immediately,
when I try to
Just deal with
intervene
the
and fix,
tension first,
it's the thing that she doesn't want. It's like, it increases like her reactivity and her pain. And so just being there, meeting her emotion, holding the space is the hard part. And I was trying to bypass that piece and skip to being the hero, being the solver, being the fixer. And I think most men can relate to that. And so,
But that also takes fitness, right? Just staying at that. That's one of the edges that we've been talking about, right? The edge where you want to stay where you want to help her, but then at the same time you want to feel the feelings and not go into that helper mode immediately. But there is like a tension there that if you sit with, then you be at the edge of your fitness.
I think we're scared of feeling helpless. I can speak to it like personally. I think it's very uncomfortable to just sit there and feel what we call helplessness. So we want to climb out of it and try to do something, change the situation.
That's also the same thing as not coming as you are, or wanting to exit, right? In a sense, like if you try to continuously help somebody, that means there is a part of you that isn't accepting the present moment as it is. So you're trying to avoid that by creating an exit strategy, which
we're trying to rush to relief.
Release for ourselves, but you're trying to release for other person, but you're actually trying to relieve for yourself. Only because you don't want to
totally
feel into the totality of the present moment. And trying to that was one of the exit strategies in that particular case, right? And you're ignoring, right? That's what's like perpetuating the suffering, because you're ignoring that part of reality. Interesting. And then what about so how did you resolve that? Like in terms of like
with the lover one? I think for me it was actually letting myself feel angry.
No, that's the one that you talked about.
So actually letting myself really feel
also the same, almost like interconnected to the other part of it, right? It's just like you said you were like overconfident at one point, right? But then you wanted to get in touch with the part of you that is like, humble or whatever. But then
it was kind of like the spiritual identity.
Right.
The spiritual identity was the one that was
supposed to feel humble. You couldn't
the one that could always be level-headed. Not overly reactive. Like all of those ideas that we carry about someone who sits in lotus and eyes closed, right?
And you're ignoring all that part for a while.
So actually, like the expression aspect was denied, and so starting to have the courage to actually express that I'm not okay. Maybe at times even like even raise my voice and yelling and expressing, but there's like a skillfulness in that too, right? And being able to do it in such a way that isn't all aimed at like blaming. It's just admitting like I'm freaking pissed right now and this isn't fair, and like just expressing your pain. And I think that was huge for my wife to start seeing something different in me to express that way, because I saw that it actually did invite a certain level of vulnerability that wasn't there from her side. Because I wasn't just like blindly like trying to point fingers back, right? It was like I'm shouting, maybe I'm like throwing stuff, but I'm just expressing how pissed I am, and like I don't know what to do with this energy. I'm like really, really heated, and I think that changed the dynamic, because it used to just be both people just doubling down on their views and just trying to defend their views. It goes nowhere, right? And so just like that sort of release, just being able to allow some of that release.
But you kind of need the view to do that, right? You need to hold the view, the right view, the nature of mind, and then express anger through that view. Otherwise, it's just going to be reifying the previous view.
And I guess anger was often just the surface level. There's usually some sort of grief and like pain beneath it.
Right. So there's like
so not all the time, but often it's like when I have that cleared,
then
I can
another
actually,
pattern emerge. Right?
Then I can weep.
Right.
Then I can
Okay, see,
sob.
That's pretty interesting.
It's like I can't actually get to the weeping and sobbing until I actually release like the frustration first.
Dude, that's a really good example of like going to the root of things. Like, okay, you realize the nature of phenomena, right? And then you go into the root of all phenomena to be, empty of inherent existence. You hold that view, and then layer by layer, you start to go deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And then you start to repattern these different layers, right? And by repatterning your own layer of being, you're also repatterning your wife's pattern, or like the relationship between your wife, because that's also a co-arising pattern, right?
Yeah, because the way we were communicating is perpetuating and hiding this, it's preserving the same patterns. So somebody in there has to make the conscious choice to change. Right? So it often feels like losing. If I were to describe phenomenologically, it actually feels like, fuck, I could just keep doing this indefinitely, but I know it's not going anywhere. But if I go this way, it feels like losing. But that's often the direction that actually I need to go.
Yeah, that's another example of seeing how even the losing is the winning.
It feels like I'm losing. It's the thing I've been avoiding after all these like previous 30 attempts at resolving the same karma. It's like, okay, what if I just try it? And like, it's literally just trying that and seeing that, oh, something's shifting. Losing might feel like me not retaliating, or me finally saying something a little bit more honest or vulnerable that I wasn't sharing before, right? Or taking the risk of saying something like, that really hurt me, like, or I'm really frustrated, because maybe I was suppressing that. Right, so each one of those looks different.
It looks different, yeah. For example, like if winning to you before when you're in the non-dual zombie mode was not getting angry.
Yes.
For you to start expressing anger in that moment, that felt
could
like
feel
you're
like
losing. You feel like you're losing your realization.
Losing my
like,
cool.
Yeah, you're losing your spiritual gains.
Yeah, that's right. Totally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how does that tie into the magician? Because I know the magician is kind of like the yogic aspect, right?
Yeah.
You need all this different archetype to like talk to each other, right? Like,
Yeah.
How does what is the magician, and how did you utilize the magician to kind of cultivate the other? Let's leave the beast now for now. To cultivate the masculine and the feminine, or the king and the lover, right? Because I think you, like I said before, you're like one of the most gifted athletes out there in terms of like yogic capacity. Kind of like fitness. You're like very gifted yogically. So obviously you already have that locked down. And anyone who joins CC have some kind of inclination towards developing their inner magician, so to speak.
Yeah.
How would you utilize yogic capacity and what we're training in terms of like, what we're doing in CC in terms of like absorption, entering different jhanas, or that aspect, that side of things to
I'd say
cultivate the other two archetypes?
I'd say magician, it wasn't always online for me. Like most of my early adulthood, I was very much identified with like being able to think rationally, use my intellect, and there's a certain rigidity to like how I prefer to like navigate the world. So I think the first glimpse into like the magician archetype was actually starting to trust intuition.
Okay.
Because I like
Ryan's path.
Yeah, so like intuition was seen as like, that's like you need evidence, you need reasons, you need to have this kind of linear.
Interesting, because intuition is usually correlated with what's like feminine, right? And then so if you had that view of someone who's masculine, you're shy away from intuition. Like, hey, I need to
All
maintain
things
this like rationalism,
used to be
intellectualism. That's more masculine, right?
Yeah, kind of like an aversion. And so it was early in like the spiritual journey was opening up to that side. Was starting to like open up to like, mystical experiences, because I started having mystical experiences. I'm like, I can't just explain this with the way that I was understanding reality. So it kind of naturally, the magician archetype just emerged because of direct experience. Like I can't explain what I just experienced from psychedelics.
So because even that right there is reclaiming all parts of you, right? When you can say all parts of you is all parts of reality. All parts of reality include the masculine, the feminine, and the magician, the intuition, and the rationality and the intellectual part of you. So it's like reclaiming the entirety of reality, right? In a sense, which is reclaiming yourself.
Yeah. And then once the path got more structured, like it became fitness training to actually cultivate these specific skills, yogic skills.
That happened after you got the CC mostly, right? Or even before that, you said you were kind of doing like Daniel Ingram and True.
Yeah. So like pragmatic Dharma, like doing a lot of years actually now getting serious about like raising the skill level of yogic capacity. And I think coming into CC, what I saw was actually those of us that are drawn here usually have yogic strength that we use to bypass
interesting.
certain emotion.
Yeah.
So that's back to like the lover archetype. It's like, the tendency to go back to just like not feeling came back. because now I had skills.
Now you have skill to do that.
just like dissolve things into bliss, or to like check out, to really disassociate and deconstruct reality in a way that there's no one here suffering. Right. So using that very thing to just go back to those same traps. And so I had to like learn to not over rely on even the magician, right? In terms of dissolving everything into love, everything into bliss and light. So it is this complete integration and union of all of these intelligences, these energies.
Yeah, because to me, integration means you're not ignoring any part of it. You're kind of transcending, but then also including all the previous layers. That's to me what integration is. Yeah, interesting. So moving on to the beast, like that's a new one, right? Or
yeah, the beast was not classically in the Gillette model, but
that's why you kind of edit, right? Or
I added a supplementary,
right?
Because I had to talk about it. I feel like
talk about how you discovered the beast. I thought that experience was like super interesting when you're like in a men's group and everything.
Yeah, I guess the beast, in a way, I think I wrote in the dissertation. It's like it. My sense is that it's the key that most men are craving and looking for, to free them of like their conditioning. Like if you think of the modern man as being caged because we hold back a lot, we repress, we learn to not trust our instincts, all those things. Or another aspect of the beast is like the brutality side of us, like the capacity to do harm, to be brutal sometimes, including.
But how is that different from like the beast? Oh, sorry, not the beast, the masculine or the king. It's kind of
it's related.
It's related. Yeah.
It's related. So I think the way I positioned it was the beast is not in its own the same as the other archetypes, but it runs beneath them all. It's kind of like the pre-verbal primal energy that fuels all the archetypes.
Oh, okay.
So like the king is an example. Without the beast, you're just pretending. It's like having crown but no real balls or authority. And people can tell, right? Like you're a CEO that's just like using your status to like flex power, or someone that actually embodies it in this sort of primal, instinctive way.
Because the beast reminds me of something that's primal and something that's in nature.
Yes.
Right? Nature of mind, or something that's unpretentious, or something that's authentic.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So it's no longer a performative thing, but it's actually flowing through you spontaneously, like in the moment. And
so the beast can also manifest itself as the lover.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like learning to express passion, love in a way that includes all of
isn't just the opposite of the masculine, but it's inclusive, right?
Yeah.
Of the magician and the masculine and the lover, all of it.
It's almost like devoid of the beast, we've become too sterile. We become like kind of these tame, like we've gotten rid of the animal part of us. That's like what severing the beast looks like. Right? Being too soft, like just really, really simply put, a whole generation of men that's just too soft, scared of their own brutality, their own power, scared of certain emotions like anger, rage, lust. It's like those are exactly the same things that start showing up in people's shadows when they start doing this sort of deep inner work. It's all the parts that they've rejected. No wonder when you're sits, you start having like, all these sexual fantasies. It's like, because you've been running away from them. Here you are to like actually begin to meet these things in a way that, you understand that actually they're part of the path. They're not things to be getting rid of.
But for someone who is more attached to like the feminine side of things, or intuition, for them, embodying the beast means that you actually have to like grow a dick. For a woman, you have to grow a dick, like in Jason's case, or maybe you need to read more philosophy.
Yeah.
But for you, or for someone who is already being identified with being a masculine, you need to feel your feelings. So the beast can look either way, right? It's very like fluctuating, shape-shifting, right? It's the beast.
Yeah. I guess back to is reminding me. So the way I first encountered it,
the beast. Yeah, I would even go so far as say that's a non-dual beast. Because in that moment you were like encountering a presence that's so dense, it's almost like a diamond, but at the same time it's completely spacious and it felt like air at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's hard to conceptualize, but essentially what it was I went on a men's retreat weekend, and all weekend we were talking about our stuff, like our life stuff. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm tired of just talking about the story. I want to show you, because I had a lot of kundalini at the time, like a lot of energetics, just like pressured energy that I wanted to express. I didn't even know what I wanted to express to the guys, but I knew it was nonverbal. So I asked permission, and the men were like, okay. So they stood in a circle. I stood up in the middle, and it just started to tap in. I was like, yeah, my legs just want to shake. They're vibrating. And I start kind of, my arms, my body, there's just all this like raw expression. And then the facilitator said, can you see if there's something in there, deep in that reservoir, that wants to come up? If you can dig and let it, like, now's your chance to uproot it. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I went looking. I was like, okay, what's in here? And this like surge of energy, it came from like the earth up. It felt like it went up into my legs and my body. And I sprinted like as fast as I could towards the facilitator, like nose to nose. And this was like a takeover. It felt like a possession. It was like my whole body just got taken over by this energy. And I was just like running at him, and then I screamed like the top of my lungs, the loudest I've ever screamed at somebody in their face. And he didn't even flinch. Like the fact that he's just stood his ground, I think was necessary for me to feel like not afraid of whatever's coming up. Like he can hold it. And so he told me to like do it again, like repeat it. So I did 2 or 3 more rounds of that. Same thing, just like gathering, and then just this explosion. After the 3rd rep, I stood there, and he told me, basically, don't disassociate. It's like feel into your experience, like feel everywhere. Spread your awareness like in all directions, behind you, above you. And then I felt this like, I felt like I filled the entire room and beyond. And it was like an atom bomb went off. It was like a detonation. And it was a force so powerful, I can only describe it as if like a bear was outside, because we were in the cabin in the forest. If a bear came into contact, it would run away. Like it felt that powerful. So it was like scary, like how powerful like that moment felt. It must have been like 3 or 4 seconds of feeling that, and then the collapse. It was like the vessel just could only hold so much of it, and then I collapsed and I sobbed and I wept and I wept. But that little glimpse was like, that didn't feel like personal, like strength. It was like something beyond the person. It was like, I call it transpersonal. Some archetypal or transpersonal energy came through, and it felt like a sort of initiation of sorts. Something was opened up. And so I call it like that was the moment I met the beast. Like encountered the beast. Yeah.
There's like a sense of confidence in there. We talked about it.
And it was like I can't unsee or unfeel what I felt, kind of thing. And there were times even afterwards in integrating, like wanting to feel it again. Like I think there were moments in the car, because it felt safe to like really like, can I feel this like immense power? And like some glimpses, but I think what it did was it just shook off a lot of the tendencies to hold back those like raw expressions. So I don't think it ever had to like look that big again, but it was like it blew the lid off to actually have moments of just like being direct with somebody, calling someone like bullshit, and not like holding back. Because I think so much of the conditioning was like, no, keep it in. These were happening like as like impulse and thoughts, but it would never get to the level of expression. And then tying it back to CC, it's realizing that, I have to learn to like wield that power of the beast in my role, whether it's as a mentor, like holding space or leading a group discussion, and trusting that instinct to know when it's time to like to be strong or when it's time to go soft and to yield,
exactly.
right? To hold space. So it's like this fluidity too. It doesn't always mean dominance. Sometimes it means just literally just receiving, you know? So there is something about trusting this, the intuitive aspect to come back. And so, I mean, in the end, even talking about it, like you can't really separate these things out. They all become one thing. It's like the beast starts to fuel the magician, the intuitive side, it starts to fuel the leadership of the king. It starts to fuel the passion of the lover, you know? Or what's the other one that I missed? The warrior. You know, the warrior, it's like being able to go to war, but with this sort of precision that you know how much to exert. Not too much, not too little.
How much to exert and how much to let go, like in the flexibility between these two extremes of like effort and effortlessness. It sounds a little bit like being in presence, like being illuminated by presence, and while at the same time, presence is cognizing the being, and they're always interpenetrating each other, right? Yeah. It actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it feels like yoking. Feels like yoking. It feels more like yoking into, I know in some discussions we talk about like the open sourcing of these dispositions. It's like that confidence, that power, that beast. It's like you're literally just yoking into what is always available to now express through you. No one possesses it. It's not like, I have this like inner thing, this innate substantial thing called a beast.
It's actually closer
It's
to
what's
like
always available.
it,
right?
it's literally available, except the reception side or the skill to connect with it is not there. There's a gap, and we're just learning to close that gap.
Interesting. So, you're right now leading Cohort 8, right? I think the last time we talked, you were in Cohort 8, right? And at that time, Jace was still leading it. And somewhere in the middle of this last boot camp, like there was a chasm that's being crossed as a cohort, and yourself too, like individually. And that was taking over Jace's role as the leader of Cohort 8. Can you maybe just describe a little bit of what that process is like?
It's probably the hardest thing I ever had to do.
Yeah, the hardest thing you ever had to do. You think so? Okay, then
Seriously.
let's talk about that. Why is it the hardest thing you ever have to do?
On the one hand, so much was happening so quickly. There's no time to like even reflect on it. So being able to like sit back and talk
for
about.
those who don't know, maybe you can just describe just a little bit. We don't have to go into detail. Like what exactly is Cohort 8? And maybe talk a little bit about the hot seating process.
Yeah,
Because
cohort.
I think managing being like the leader of that cohort is almost like pretty frightening, because it's really frightening just to be in that cohort, to be at a hot seat, right? But then now you're the one facilitating that.
Yeah, I think the way it came about in cohort 7, there was this idea to have a separate cohort that was specifically geared at like
Relational fitness
was working on your relational fitness as the expression of all the fitness gains from the training, from the basic like main cohort.
It's the same transmission, right? Yeah.
And so that intrigued me, because I saw that that's where a lot of my gaps were in life. In relationship was where I just go back to like usual patterns, and I'm not actually applying all those skills of non-withdrawal, staying engaged, being responsive, like all those things is actually that's the training ground. And so that was the premise of 7, was to have a separate cohorts, usually smaller, more intimate, to have discussion space where we're not sitting in silence, but we're actually working things out. And one of the methodologies that came forth was this idea of hot seating. So I don't know whose idea it was. Maybe it was Jace's to like experiment, but it worked really well. Essentially, in the meeting, we have one person that's being hot seated. It's not really the person being hot seated, it's their karma, right? Their karma is being spotlighted, and we're willingly showing up to be exposed, like our blind spots. Right? So the agreement is that you show up to a group that you trust, this container, and they will point things out, your afflictions, your obscurations, in a way that maybe you just can't see.
Because you cannot see your own view, right? And that's
view.
Also not separate from view refinement, which is another parallel cohort, Cohort D. The two are almost like interrelated, because you also have some of the acolytes from Cohort 8 to go to Cohort D to refine their views, right?
Yeah. And so I think that first round, we discovered that everybody saw like how potent that meeting was for each person, so consequential. Like coming into the hot seat and walking out, actually seeing aspects of like their behavior or their patterns that they just couldn't have seen without someone else from a different vantage, like showing them or pointing things out. And so that was something that was initiated that just carried forth as a tradition. So into the Cohort 8 was a big, I think for everybody that joined the cohort, they heard about the hot seating and was really intrigued. That became almost this thing that people wanted to experience.
It's like, hey, I want to get pinned. Yeah.
Now it's like I want to voluntarily get pinned, and it's not like so aggressive, but there is a fitness to like being able to point things out in a way that you're not captured by like that part of us that tends to like empathize with the other person, because often we get lost in the same conspiracy where we're trying to make someone feel better. Like we feel bad for so we do exactly the same things that people
Perpetuates that karma.
have been doing to perpetuate and bypass the thing.
But you don't want to be too mean either, right? So there's like a finesse to it, right? That's where the maneuvers and the fitness is, right? You're staying with the middle way view.
Yeah. And so I think this boot camp, it's almost like professionalize even more. It's like we've learned from best practices from experience of how to conduct it in a way that's basically effective for everybody. Not just the one being hot seated, but the people that are hot seating, they're being changed.
They're getting pinned too, because it's cohort rising, right?
You're gonna resonate.
Yeah, your karma's gonna resonate with whoever is getting pinned. And
exactly.
If that person's karma gets repatterned or gets exhausted, the people who are like interacting with that particular person who's getting pinned or that particular karma who's getting pinned are also getting repatterned, right? As a mandala.
Yes.
So to speak. Yeah. And then you were like, okay, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you took over Jesus' role? You don't have to talk about like why you left, but like that process of you suddenly became like the cohort leader, so to speak. And how did you navigate that? And then you were like, oh my God, can I really do this? And you probably felt like you were getting pinned when you have to like becoming the one who's going to facilitate how everyone else is getting pinned. Right?
Yeah. I think that the way it came up was like I was told like last minute like you're going to take over A. Like, you willing to do it? Basically, like I was asked, and I was like, okay, like I want to do it, but I'm also like, what am I going to do? Because it's already half of the boot camp's already finished. So my main struggle was a lot of doubt. I had a lot of doubt of like, not just like my capacity, but like, do I even have the relational capital with the group? Because they have all this momentum built up. I'm like a supply teacher coming in. It's like the teacher's gone.
But you were already a mentor, kind of, right?
I was a mentor, but I wasn't engaged with their discussions for the first half. So it was like quickly trying to yoke with the group. So that was the first challenge. Like, how do I actually get to really meet everyone where they're at? And I think the moment flipped was when I started to view it as through the lens of victory. I was like, okay, so my job is to help land this cohort, and part of landing it is helping each of us get closer to whatever that unique Dharma is for all of us. That would look like winning for me. Like, by the end of the cohort, if we can all move towards that, then I think we would have accomplished like our mission. And so I started the conversation like that. I basically told the group, to me, like, you're the center of my mandala. It's like, if we do this right, if we win, the rest of CC wins. Like, then I don't have to like, my attention doesn't have to get spread into all the different complexities. It's like, we can just scope the problem to like this. And what it looked like was doing some of the hot seating that were coming up. So for each person to like, get the most out of their hot seating, for the group to get, extract the most learning and, accumulating of reps. And once I had that framing, almost like turning it into like a sports like context of like, this is our goal and this is our game plan, for whatever reason, that confidence came in.
Was there any measurable goal?
The measurable goal looked a little different for each person.
I know there were like pithy instructions that had to be completed, right?
Yeah. But I think if you want to boil it down to actually making different choices in your life. Like, not just walking away with like more clarity. So this is the other piece, is like, it's not just about clear seeing.
You have to take action.
It's actually embody the clear seeing in terms of choice making, changing of patterns. And so,
because I think one of the things I kept saying in this cohort is like, you are what you do, right?
Yeah. And then you have a group that holds you accountable when you're not doing it. So you have this thing, like, you can't actually hide anymore, right? It's one thing to like illuminate like someone's edge. They have to now do their part to actually continually opt in to course correcting, or to do the things that they've been shying away from, and then you have a whole group and through the continued relating that will point things out. And sometimes, we'll say things that maybe are not comfortable to hear, like confronting somebody. Lorenz at one point told me, he was like, Adrian, I feel like you just keep picking on me. Like, he was like really pissed, genuinely had this reaction of like, I feel like, it's treating me unfairly, like I'm being pinned all the time. Every interaction is being pinned, which was interesting because from my perspective, it wasn't like I'm trying to belittle him or something. He was kind of like, perceiving it as that. It was me like, in order for us to win, we all have to do our part. It's like, it's like I need all of us to do our part. And this, me showing up and continually doing this is me doing my part, of agreeing to that thing that we set out to do. Basic things of like, hey, like, don't skip this thing out. Don't choose the lazy route. Because that was his karma, was like this sort of underlying laziness, like choosing comfort over discomfort or pain. I'm like, no, don't do that. That's the very thing. So for him,
his fifth instruction is actually just going to the gym, right?
Yeah, one of them was like continually going to the gym. Like the things that he would avoid typically, it was like, do the very things that you don't want to do.
You can see the fruit of his progress during his presentation last week. Yeah, he had a dissertation. Right?
It was amazing. Yeah, and he talked a lot about it. And he didn't have to hide that. It's not like a one-time thing. Maybe you have a moment where you triumphantly overcome, but then the next week you're back to the same thing. You got to keep, keep working at it. So it's not just like one and done thing. Yeah, it is a fitness. It's like you can't just go to the gym 1 week.
Yeah.
It's a continued thing.
And then you have to take that into like everyday life, you know. Right?
Yeah.
Like doing parkour in real life. Yeah, yeah. So that obviously increased your fitness a lot, right? Just by doing that. I can even see your growth like in real time. Other than that, what was other signs of fitness that you've come to realize that you've gained throughout, like this is the coming into the fourth cohort now, right? You did 3 boot camp, right?
Yeah.
Like give us some testimonials like, for the last part. Yeah.
I think I always go back to like my relationship at home.
With your wife,
Right.
right?
So
Okay.
yeah, my marriage is a big marker, and then my parenting with my kids, like relationship with parenting. From the marriage side, I think it's not like we don't fight as much. It's like when we do have disagreement or conflict, there's more courage. There's more courage to like actually go to the place that is the heart of the matter, and not beating around and all these things like blame, shame, whatever. It's like actually more quickly
Identify the root.
Identify the thing that's actually problematic.
Yeah.
And that often feels like losing, right? Back to that thing. It's like internally it'll feel like the thing I don't want to feel. Also, being okay with leaving things seemingly unfinished and waiting for long enough for coherence to arise. And that could take days, weeks, and that can drive me crazy. Because I used to hate the feeling of something unresolved, like going to bed and like we have this thing open up. I hate that feeling. I just want to like get to relief, right? So part of the fitness was learning that, yeah, this might require that that staying power, you know? And yeah, I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's easy to not know where this is going to go. And like, I want a solution, I want an answer. And
I think it can all be some of us resting and recognizing, actually, right? It's like resting as the affliction, as the pattern, while recognizing it.
Yes.
And sometimes that resting can look like holding to opposing views, like we talked about earlier, or like for your particular affliction was like coming to a conclusion, but maybe resting in not knowing.
Yes.
But then simultaneously recognizing the entirety of the pattern, the totality of your being and aggregation, and that can look differently in each situation, or with your wife and with your parents, right?
Yep.
But then there's a continuation of increasing the ability and the fitness, the capacity to do that.
Yep.
That shows up in a very concrete level, right?
yeah, and there has to be a willingness to like take full ownership. So
That's part of the rest and recognition.
yeah.
Right?
So like holding it and then having
that's the recognition part. It's like if you recognize it, that means you're taking full ownership.
you're sorting out the affliction. It's like this is my affliction,
Yeah.
and like actually taking ownership. Like this is why. Fully owning my reactivity, the way that it hurts me uniquely, you know, like all of that stuff, and still leaving room for it being empty, not substantiating it. So it's like this dual thing of like, yeah, like don't deny that it's the case,
but don't substantialize it either.
In my subjectivity, like admitting that, yeah, I'm like really triggered by this like bullshit thing right now, but then not getting captured by that.
Not
at the
getting
same time.
captured
Yeah.
while at the same time like taking ownership. It's
Yeah.
like you're surrendering, but at the same time, because you're surrendering, you are actually taking ownership fully, and vice versa. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from like the parenting side, I think seeing the gains in terms of not exiting as easily. I used to exit by like, you know, grabbing the phone quickly, trying to like distance from the situation because it's so tiresome or painful or frustrating that I'm looking for escape routes basically to like numb the discomfort, right? So it's just, yeah, there's a lot more ability to not panic, still be in the muck and still do the work. Like don't, you know, not giving up on it. I had this one example last boot camp where we were coming back from a flight with the whole family, 2 kids. My 1.5-year-old was like screaming for like 3 hours, and like I was done at this point, like from a fatigue standpoint and the stress. And then the last straw was like the stewardess was handing over some milk for the baby, and she spilt it like all over our laps. And there was like a split moment. I could feel the tilt towards reacting of like, and then like needing to like try to, you know, fix it or whatever. And then it just like, it was almost like as quickly as I saw it, it was just fully like letting it be. It was like the spontaneous like liberation, like from the moment. It was like, okay, like, yeah, like this sucks. I'm exhausted and the milk, but it isn't actually urgent, even though there's a whole sense of urgency running through the body. So not following that karmic pattern.
Trajectory.
Yeah, and just like resting, like that resting, but allowing that expression of like thinking it's a problem, thinking it's an urgent thing, but just being able to rest there. I don't know. That moment was like, a lot was packed into that experience. It was like, oh shit, like I can handle anything, and it doesn't deny that there's still like this tendency towards like freaking out or doing something. That can just exhaust itself. Like I can still.
You're not exhausting the pattern per se, but you're exhausting the sort of the resistance on top of the pattern. So it's like letting the being or letting the aggregation unfold while neither resisting it nor not resisting it. Right?
Yeah, it's like
always staying. That's back to what we're talking about this whole time, right? Just have that staying power.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like the reactivity is already going to be there. You're already conditioned to react, but you're not reacting to that.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Like going into cohort 9?
So we got a big cohort coming in with 9A. So we have a group of invite-only initiate interns that are now essentially going to use this boot camp as like a probationary trial period, kind of a stress test for them to also see, is there compatibility with the increase in responsibility, the professionalism of how each person's now kind of on these team tracks within CC, and does it cohere with their life, basically, right? And then for CC to also gauge, readiness, fit, and then I think still doing a lot of the things that seem to have worked well in A, like hot seating, pith instruction, but it's with a bigger group. I think as a team, we've went through a big reorg, this boot camp. So it'd be really cool. It's also a stress test for the team to be able to bring in and facilitate like a period of growth, like for the team, right? We're going to potentially have a lot more people joining. So we're scaling. And so it's a stress test also for the internal team and the leadership to see how do we handle that? How are we going to navigate the emergent problems that are going to come up, in real time? I'm excited. I think, like there's a lot more clarity than beginning of 8, I would say. Like at least, being thrown into the fire midway through, it's like in a way, okay, like surviving, not just surviving, but I think like actually accomplishing some real gains. So I have a healthy dose of, I think, like optimism and confidence, like going into this boot camp. We're on retreat right now, so there's a lot of discussions about how to help land this, with the community at large. So there's exciting times for sure. Yeah.
All right, that was beautiful.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's
beautiful. That was good.
Thank you.
I think we got everything covered, dude. It was good, right? Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? Yeah, you described like everything and putting it all together. Yeah, and then like, that was really.